Okay, so I'm actually currently in Toledo, Ohio because I was at BASHCon 30 this weekend. So, and that means I don't have my video games with me for the most part. But I already had an episode in the can, as they say in the business. So, that's it, basically. I'll probably do a video about BASHCon and about my Toledo experience next week. But stay tuned next week. I'll have some regularly scheduled programming. So originally I was going to do a video about like the top, best, and worst Sega Genesis game covers. Only games for those that were released in the US on the Genesis. And there were some great ones that have been seen multiple times. Then there were some really atrocious ones like DJ Boy by Kaneko? How it's pronounced. It just looks so bad. But I went through, and as I was going through, I was realizing I could probably do like 100. First I was going to do a top 10 worst ones, and then I realized I should probably add like best, some good ones too, just to balance it out. So I was going to do 10 best and 10 worst, not in any order. Then I realized I really couldn't narrow it down to 10 of each. So, for this video, we're going to talk about Genesis games from Electronic Arts. Because for the Genesis, the vast majority of the time, Sega really allowed companies to make whatever cover it had, whatever cover they wanted. They'd put the Sega seal of approval or quality or whatever they called it on there. But otherwise, it would just be the company could design it however they wanted. Nintendo really didn't do this with the SNES. With the NES, they did allow that. There was still the seal of quality, and you had to pay in order to use the word Nintendo, which I'm pretty sure Sega had something similar to that too, included in the agreements. But with the Genesis, companies were really allowed to have free reign, total free reign. There's no template or anything. So today we're going to look at one of the largest third-party publishers for the Genesis, Electronic Arts, currently known as EA. Actually, I think they're still technically Electronic Arts, but for the most part, they're just called EA. EA made a ton of games for the Genesis, but as we'll see now, for the most part, they all had one template that they used, and early on, especially, there was a small artwork. It was roughly square in the top center, and then the name of the game directly below it, but then there was this border around it, which, especially with these early games that you're looking at right now, for the most part just looked boring and ugly. I mean, like, if you can see the one for Buck Rogers in the lower right corner, and the one for Mutant League Football, those two look like the artwork on them looks cool. If it were the entire thing for it, it would look so much better than with that black and gray, bluish gray and like pixelated orange on it. Or like Rings of Power. Rings of Power. That looks pretty cool. Shadow of the Beast, that looks cool. Zany Golf and Centurion, yeah, they kind of look boring, but still, forcing them into this template just really degrades from it, because the border around the edge just looks really, really boring to an absurd degree. Like James Pond in the top middle right here, and Shadow of the Beast are just, for the most part, just solid colors that kind of contrast with the picture inside of them. Now, not every game did this, interestingly enough. Some other of the relatively early games for the system didn't have a border, or if they did have a border, it was a very small one. Like Lotus 2, Urban Strike, and F-117 Night Storm. Here you can see the artwork very, very well. Obviously, there's less on screen, but even if you just pull up the identical sized ones next to each other, you can see the artwork much better, and the artwork looks a lot better because it takes center stage. And it doesn't have enormous bars on the side that make it just look boring. I mean, Urban Strike looks like a movie poster. And EA's influence even went into some other games too. Like here you see another game from Kaneko. Not sure how you pronounce that actually. Airbuster, which doesn't completely follow the template, and obviously it's not the same company, but still uses a picture shrunk down into top middle of the screen with a weird border all the way around it. It just looks... Your eyes just take away from the cool picture to the ugly yellow block in the sides. It doesn't look good at all. Admittedly, some games made much better use of the border than others. Here you see 7 of... There's going to be another 7 in a minute. 7 games that, while they do still have the same basic template, picture on top with border on the around it, you can see they do something interesting with it that looks a lot better. Rolo, in the bottom middle, practically explodes out of that square. And Road Rash 2 almost literally is coming out of it towards you. It actually gives you a little perceptive look that actually makes it look a little better. You can see like the Reaper and Immortal. I haven't actually played most of these games. The Reaper dude from Immortal actually is like doing this, using his scythe and dragging along the edge. That looks cool. Even like Techno Clash in the side still is doing something. And then LHX and Jungle Strike have backgrounds as opposed to just blank colors. Same with Powermonger. All these games, you still use that same, or forced into that same setup, but they use it better and make it at least look interesting. Oh, we'll move on to another set of 7 games that do something better. Bob in the bottom corner here, he's also just like coming out of the screen, or coming out of the frame. F-22's got clouds, and the same like wireframe type thing that you saw in the Lotus earlier, that was apparently a thing back then. General Chaos's 2 main characters are larger than life because they come out of the frame. If they were stuck in that frame, they'd be so small you wouldn't be able to even like see anything about them. Mutant League Hockey, which will segue into the next one actually pretty well. Mutant League Hockey actually changes the frame, the size and shape of the frame, more so than, or actually I don't think I saw any game that really changed that box. Which makes it a really interesting little title, and I'm still trying to find a copy. And one thing that EA was probably best known for was their sports games. Their sports games, for the most part, actually didn't really follow it perfectly. They had their own template, which was basically a white background with a relatively large picture, either a composite or an action picture, depending on the game. Like you see here with NHL 94, of I think it's a LA Kings player moving in on the Boston Bruins, who at the time were not very good. And this is a very well known game, so but you can still, if you've been looking at the frames before, you can still kind of see that in there. Now, by sometime in 1994 or 1990, sometime I think late 1994, EA pretty much just moved away from or just abolished the frame setup. Maybe it was because they were preparing for the Sega Saturn and Sony PlayStation, which they probably already had some semblance of a mock-up for them. Or maybe it's because they were going off, maybe it was some other market trends, but you see Shaq Fu here, which was from 94, has no semblance of a frame whatsoever. And the sports games around it were all released in 95 and 96, and also have none of that frame style that we saw before. So this has been a look at the history of EA's Sega Genesis games. Maybe I'll look at ones from other companies, maybe ones from other systems. Make sure to rate, comment, like, subscribe, and tell all your friends. And we'll see you next time.